Babylon. Yeah, we sat down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying. Oh,
Shalom, shalom, family. Welcome to another Tanakh review. My name is Zurishaddai, one of the teachers of Congregation CHOKMAH BINAH, located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York. Giving all honor, glory, and praise to the Most High, King of the universe, for life, food, clothing, and shelter, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Also praying that the Creator will continue to be with each and every one of you, all of you who listen to us on a weekly basis. Early Shabbat Shalom to all of you. Praying that the Most High God would even bestow upon you the blessings from heaven. And you look over each and every one of us who are here on this weekly class. Praying that the Most High God be with the sick, with the downtrodden, the poor, the needy, the fatherless, the widow, that the Creator would hear their cries and their supplications, and that He would grant them peace. Also praying that the Creator be with all those who might be sick, that the Most High God would heal you, will cause you to recover speedily. So once again, this week we're going to be going over the portion of Balak. The portion of Balak is just a review of the previous week's Sidra. So we're going to be going over that. We're going to be going over that. Don't forget also August 31st, our 10th anniversary celebration. You can find all the information on our YouTube channel, and if you have any, if you want to know anything about that, you could call us at 347-622-9090. You could contact us at 347-622-9090, or you could contact us at info@beitdcb.org. That's info@beitdcb.org. So we hope that everyone comes out and support and be with us. Also, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe this video. And hey, we're about ready to get started, and I'm going to move on to the lesson for today. And for that, I'm going to pass it on to one of my teachers and one of my mentors, even Nasik, Zurishaddai ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
Great, Brother Shem. First of all, I'd like to praise to the Supreme Intelligence of the universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob. Due respect to the platform on D.C.B channel platform, spiritual leader, Chief Prince Ariel Ben Saska, the host Chief Uzziel, to the Princes, Chief Kohanim, Rabbinate, Maureen, brothers and sisters and visitors to the channel. I greet you all and tell my forefathers, Shalom Aleichem, and an early Shabbat Shalom. I'd like to start off as normal. Adonai Septai Ditaku Fiyagi Tilatheaka. O Lord, down my mouth and my lips and my mouth should declare the praise. So this is really applicable for this particular sidra, talking about lips or mouth, in that sense. Also, I just make a little bit of tweak a little my own statement from last portion, because we left off about Moses not mentioning the promised land because he disobeyed the Creator, and Aaron. And we enter the 40th year, so it's a big jump. So a lot goes on in the 40th year. We had three major figures that are going to die in this 40th year. Miriam already in the first month of the 40th year. Aaron, the first high priest in the 5th month of the 40th year. And we know, just going ahead, that Moses dies, around the 12th month of the 40th year. So we know, and you figure, as you're so close into your last year, you wouldn't have so much action and chaos going on. But just like in the first year out of Egypt, there was a lot of ups and downs and upheavals and stuff going on with the people. So was it be at the end of this journey? It'd be a lot of ups and downs, highs and lows. One of the things I mentioned about the 70 palm trees about water, after when the first time they had issues with water, they had those 12 streams. I think I mentioned the word wells, those 12 streams, and make more sense in the sense that they drink water from the water of those streams, because you got millions of people. And can you imagine, millions of people at 12 wells trying to haul water or something like that? But if you got streams, it's just a flow. So the wilderness wasn't always just dry, parched desert land. The creative, made sceneries that, you had date palm trees, which is, edible. So you had some things that they had in the wilderness and they're tracking their journey. So when we think about the wilderness, Sinai, the desert of Sinai, we think of the desert like Death Valley. But sometimes it was parched, sometimes it was, a little bit of greenery, because mind you, it had to have some kind of terrain there, a greenery to a degree. It wasn't just straight, dry desert land. And why would I come up with that? It's because we was getting manna, dew come upon the grass, and then the manna come upon the dew, and then the dew come with the manna. So just from that, that action alone, you don't think of it as, just pure sand throughout all they spots that they actually settled and set. They had to have, some, some kind of greenery, some kind of way. If it more, just a little bit of grass, in some areas. So, and and be able to pitch a tent on sand to be comfortable would be a little bit of a, a rough thing, not only for the people, but for the animals and for the children as well. So when we think about Midmar being, a desert, and that's the word for desert, is not a desert like we would think of like Death Valley or the Sahara as it looks today. All right, so I just want to bring that point out as well. And I want to address two questions that was posed to me that I only seen two that was written out. And one was concerning from the book of Numbers, when the ground opened up and swallowed, Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, and their whole household. Now, the whole household of Dathan and Abiram, but not the whole household of Korah. And and the question was asked about how to compare with that with Deuteronomy the 16th chapter, when it's talk about the children shouldn't be, father shouldn't be held accountable for the children, and die for the sins of the children, and the children should die for the sins of the father. And yet you have families going down. Well, as I mentioned earlier, that Korach's sons didn't die and wasn't swallowed up. Now there's a lot of different tales on it, but basically in a nutshell, they didn't die. Moses told everyone to get away from those people and take nothing of theirs. So obviously Korach's sons took heed and stepped away from their father, whereas Dathan and Abiram, their family stayed together and they went down together. So that, so that's an instance there. And then we read later on there, just in case it come up in the time of Joshua, about Achan, who had a wedge of gold and some silver and a Babylonian garment, and then his whole household had to be stoned because of that. Well, everybody, it was in the place, everybody knew about it, and they're asking about why they would inquire was why this thing come upon them, because they was told not to touch the cursed thing, and so only his confession came only after it centered on his particular household. So that means everybody was involved in it, in that matter. So, and then a lot of people had died, because of that matter. And then when you read in Exodus, it said, visiting the sins of the fathers upon the children, and the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. but show mercy on thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. We read that in the book of Exodus. And when we read that in the book of Exodus, that's letting you know that that God only go 3 to 4 generations of those that hate him. That means you ain't trying to get right. And then you're talking about mercy to thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Mercies, because you think you're doing it right, you're working on getting it right, but you have a little slip ups here and there. So, but your intention is to try to do all that is coming upon you with the Creator. Now, the second question I want to address before I get into this particular portion was that animal sacrifice. Now, and the question was, about basically about, I remember my friends, about it led up to, about sensitivity, when it, because the righteous man regarded the life of his beast, and it was pointed to us, Solomon, the books, the person said Kohelet, but that's Solomon's nickname, Kohelet. And when we look at that, we find that would fall under the guise, for me, for us, since the questions, I'm trying to answer the question the best I can, as honestly as I can. A cult. A cult is those laws that defies reasoning, though we have reasons that we give. But the simple manner is that God said this is what we must do for different, sacrifices and everything like that. But I want to caution the individual that asked the question. It has nothing to do with necromancy. Because they said, what is similar to about something that's going to happen in the future. That is necromancy. That's basically what Saul wanted the witch of Endor to do when Samuel's spirit came up. So that's a violation. That's not that. The sacrifices is what God said. If we recall correctly in Exodus, Moses told Pharaoh, all that stuff had to go, because we don't know what we might have to offer up to God. We don't know. Moses confessed at that point in time to Pharaoh, I don't know what God really requires of me yet. I know I'm told him that this is what he told us to do. Everybody leave, let us go. And we're supposed to ask of the Egyptians of certain things, and come on out. And Moses even told Pharaoh, you're going to have to give up something too. So the thing is that at that point in time, at the Moses went down towards the beginning, before we even exited out the land of Egypt. Moses himself had never offered up a sacrifice to God that we read about. He didn't know what to offer in that sense. How can be now sacrifices being done? Can we know other patriarchs did it, and why they did it, how they did it, who told them to do it? That's always up for, sometimes you don't read where anybody told them to do anything. Abraham coming to the land. So when we talk about and they sacrifice animals, like I said, they always have reasons for it, that they give, that they elevate the spirit of the animal and stuff like that into a holy level, because utilize them, because the animal can't elevate himself. And also in response to us, depends on the different sacrifices that's being offered up. But in short, I'd say that falls in an area of a cult statute that we don't understand how and why it should work that way on our behalf. So that's the best I can do on that. And perhaps other people will give you other areas, because we come with a lot of metaphors and conjecturalize and stuff like that, which is okay. If we're going to help you be more observant, it's okay, because it's just a concept that you're coming up with. But the actual why we actually was told to do it, we do it only because the Creator told us to do it. Almost like the rat heifer. All right. So now we're going to this area here of Balak. And when we talk about now, this is actually the second non-Israelite, Sidra that we read other than Noah, the Sidra Noah, who actually the progenitor. So, at Noah, you can't say he was what nationality he was except a son of Ben Adam. So, and only after Ben Adam, and after Noah, then we have actually nationalities on the other side of the flood. When God, confounded the languages, and we went through them three sons that exist. So that's when we start coming with nationalities. So when we talk about the Balak, now he's family, just like Jethro's family. Balak is a descendant of Moab. Although some commentaries say differ, but I'll leave it in this sense. He's a descendant of Moab, and also that Yithro, a descendant of Midian. So the Midianites are descendants from Abraham's wife of Keturah, and Moab is a descendant from Abraham's nephew Lot. So they're still family. Just some is closer than others, in that sense. So what's interesting is that this particular book, when we get into the book of Balak, who's the king of Moab at this time, we just already Moses beat down Sihon, king of Amorites, and Og, king of Bashan, the Bashanese, So he beat those two kings down. And we know, like I said before, Moses was afraid of Og, but he didn't bring the fear to the people. But God told him, don't fear. Why? Og might have had some merits, about whatever the case is that Moses, because he definitely was well known. And besides just being big, it wasn't just because of his size, but because we know Esau, when he conquered the region, there was some big people up there. Moab, when they first conquered the region, it was some big giant folks up in there. Ammon, when they first conquered the region, was some big folks up in there. Huge folks in size. So why would Moses be afraid of this guy Og? And there's a lot of different legends and tales about which I don't want to go into, because that would derail what I want to focus on today. Also, it starts from the 22nd chapter of the second verse in the Masoretic text, and it continues all the way to the 25th chapter and ends at the 9th verse. So much stuff going on in there. And normally, Kukak and Balak is usually combined as a double portion. But we are fortunate this year that it's actually separate, because there's so much subject matters in Kukak, and it's also a lot of different areas to explore and consider Balak. And what's interesting is that normally when we was reading the scriptures, everything's pretty much straightforward, pretty clean, and pretty, for the most part, understood. But now we're going to come to a portion in scriptures that this is not really that clear cut. We be all over the place with different storylines, different metaphors, and we are introduced to a term that we haven't really seen before, which is parables. A parable. What is a parable? How do we understand a parable? Why can't a guy do straight talk like we've been listening to all the time? When it comes to the laws and stuff like that, that's straight talk. Now, if a prophet had a vision, later on, he tried to explain it straight talk. But here, we encounter a book of parables and stuff like that. And then we find a lot of other similarities as we get into this book. So I'm gonna just read a little bit of it. I'm trying not to take too much time, but it opens up in the second verse of the 22nd chapters of Numbers. And Balak the son of Zippor saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites, and Moab was sore afraid of the people, because they were many, and Moab was overcome with dread because of the children of Israel. And Moab said unto the elders of Midian, now this multitude lick up all that round about us, as the ox licketh up the grass of the field. All right. So, and Balak, the son of Zippor, was king of Moab at the time. So, first of all, everybody witnessed what they did. What did they do? They beat the Amorites out, beat them down. And why would you be afraid? Because somebody, in a battle, somebody gonna win. You're gonna have winners and losers, and they wasn't fighting you. So, why would you be afraid when you're south of that? They're not harassing you. So now, since they beat down some guys that, you looked up to on that side, and the thing was, they didn't really want to occupy the place. They wanted to pass through. We didn't want to stay. We wanted to pass through your neighborhood and go to our inheritance. Our fight is not with you. Our fight is with the people on the other side of that Jordan River. That's who we got to, have the conflict with. And you notice way back in the book, our patriarch Abraham had made a covenant with the Amorite. So you say, well, with the Philistines rather, the Philistines, the Amorites, God told them that the Amorites' iniquity is not yet fulfilled. So they on both sides of the Jordan, as well, scattered out. But this main force was right there between us crossing over the Jordan into the land of Canaan, all right, for the land of our inheritance. So, but you notice that it says in the 4th verse that, and Moab said unto the elders of Midian, and he described, so what Midian got to do with this? If the king of Moab is afraid, why is it that Midian is involved in this here? And they talk to the elders of Midian. So that means this is supposed to be the advisors, some of the elite of Midian. All right. And then they describe Israel as an ox that lick up grass. Now, we know a lot of animals graze, but a metaphorical concept is that when the ox licks grass up, it don't use it. Most animals try to chew it up, graze the top and everything like that. But the tongue of the ox like a muscle. So when it licks the grass, it actually uproot the roots. It's almost like people that want to grow have a nice lawn, and they say, well, don't cut my grass too low, because you might uproot it. Well, an ox, actually, when they lick grass, they get deep down to they actually uproot the grass when they're eating it. So that means, metaphorically, they're thinking that just like an ox lick up the grass where there'd be no trace of another generation coming forth, that we could possibly be wiped out, because look what happened to the Ammonites. Look what happened to, the Bashanites. Look what happened to those two people. And they were some tough people. And also, under normal circumstances, Israel shouldn't be able to beat them. So how we know it was something supernatural. So we need to talk to you, because the leader, Moses, was raised up in Midian, and he took advice from a Midianite. So maybe we can't fight, with sword and shield against them, because they went in and fighting on a whole nother level. Even the Egyptians recognize and say, at the Yom Suf, and the Lord fight for them. They say they can't fight out, fight, the Lord fight for them. So Balak, the Moabites, was afraid because of a battle victory and say, who will be next? So they went to get some advice from some people where they considered Moses was nurtured under, and also he was given some good advice by a Midianite. So when we look a little further, I'm just going to read a couple of these things, then I'm just going to go off the script, so to speak. And Balak the son of Zippor was king of Moab at the time, and he sent messengers unto Balaam the son of Beor to Petor, which is by the river, to the land of the children of his people, to call him, saying, Behold, there's a people come out from Egypt. Behold, they cover the face of the earth, and they abide over against me. Come now, therefore, I pray thee, curse me, this people, for they are too mighty for me. Peradventure I shall prevail, that we may smite them, and that I may drive them out of the land. For I know that he whom thou blessest is blessed, and he whom thou cursest is cursed. All right. So now that's the message that Balak sends. Now, Petor, mostly it's Petora, and which means Torah, Petor. That's over in the Euphrates. That's back in Syria. That's where back in Syria, where Abraham lived from, where Laban lived at. It's in that area there. So now, if we over here, at the brink of the Jordan, and you're gonna send messages all the way across, northward, to that place, they get a guy to come back to curse a people. That means not only you think you got a lot of time, but also the thing is that his reputation had to be so well known that he became internationally known. And then it said, your record, I didn't check your resume. But you notice what he said first. Those you bless is blessed. So you do bless some people sometime. See, we just focus more on Balaam being a prophet that just cursing. No, he had to actually bless some people, because there's a testimony here saying that, the guy said, look, I know people you bless is blessed. And those who curse is cursed. So your record is pretty much 100%. And I'm not going through the, different, midrashic things or, legends, they would say, and concerning Jethro, Eo, and Balaam. All right, but there's a lot of legends concerning it, but I want to stay more on this topic here. In that sense. So why, if you're looking at that, and you just say this is a people, all right, and you want him to, and the thing is that you don't want him to kill him. If you really want a people to be out your way, then it would make sense to say, have them disappear. Get rid of these folks for me. You know what I mean? I don't want them alive. I don't even want to have to fight. Get rid of them. Or bless me. Bless me, so I don't have to worry about these people at all. Just bless me. Now, Balak and them would know the resume of the people, and since he know the resume of the people, at that time, it told you already, those that he that cursed Abraham will be cursing, and those that bless him will be blessed. But he used the word blessing first, and those that bless him will be blessed, and those that and he that curse you will be cursed. So with that formula there that God said, then why not look for the blessing as opposed to the curse? But Balak means destroyer, and Balaam means gluttony. That's the names mean. So I guess the destroyer want to build his reputation up by destroying some people. So it's almost like you're in a prize fighting ring, and your opponent is too good for you, and you have somebody over there put some sedative in his water that he rinses his mouth out when he get dizzy, some drugs in the water, when he get weak. So now you look like you're doing real good, or you might have some stuff on your gloves. Every time you punch him, or stuff like that, and up on your body, and you lean his head up on your body, his eyes start burning. So that's what that. So you look good. This is what Balak want. So he want his reputation to stay intact. And then as we go further, and that's a long journey that he had to take. But in the 7th verse, it says, and the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the rewards of divination in their hand, and they came unto Balaam and spoke unto him the words of Balak. Now, before we even go further, I usually try not to read everything in this when I'm trying to review, but some points is pretty important to go through, and in order for the people that are be listening online. They said rewards of divination. So that means they're going to use some kind of, as we say, unsavory arts to try to employ, Mr. Arts. They ain't looking towards God. And you notice the thing is, they believe in spiritual warfare, but not God being the spirit of all spirits to handle and decide war. So this is something. They're very spiritual because they're talking about divination, and everything. And they come with the rewards of divination. That means that if you come with the rewards of divination, that means what he might not have at his disposal, I know some stuff myself. I'm not as good as him. I don't have a reputation as great as him. So since I'm sending what he might not have, he might have some of this stuff, but the stuff that he might not have, y'all take that with you. So he won't be lacking. We want to make sure he got all the tools at his disposal. You watch some of these horror movies and stuff like that there, stuff, and people need this and need that, they need this and they need that, and some things are difficult to come through, So this is show you that they into that same arts as they're looking for Balaam to be in. And they know that he's into that type of art. They just know that he's much more skilled than they are in that art. So that's why it's such a long expedition and long a long big invitation for him. And it goes on to say, and he said unto them, Lodge here that night. This Balaam speaking. And I will bring you back word as the Lord may speak unto me. And the princes of Moab abode with Balaam. And God came unto Balaam and said, What are these men with thee? And Balaam said unto God, Balak the son of Zippor, king of Moab, has sent unto me, saying to imply there, Behold, the people that is come out of Egypt is covered, and it covers the face of the earth. Now come curse me them, peradventure I shall be able to fight against them and shall drive them out. Now he said exactly what Balak said, except what we're missing is who are these people we're talking about? Everybody in the world knew when Israel left. Why he just don't say them Israelites or them Hebrews? Why they don't say that? Why their names stay anonymous in it? This transaction, and could it be a test for Balaam? That they keep the people anonymous, or their reputation so big that I don't even want to mention their name because you might get scared if I mention their name. So that's something that you got to say, oh wow, he don't even identify the people. And God, when he asks who are the men, God don't need information. but he needs you to think about what you're doing, you know. And why do a person need you to weaken another individual, to beat them, instead of saying, cause these individuals to leave me alone? You know, sometimes we read where it says, save me from my enemies. Not necessarily attack my enemies, but save me from my enemies. And that's a lot of times, you look at, you want, because, sometimes the enemy may not be an enemy forever. It might be this enemy for a particular point in time, but sometimes you might say, but more so than slay my enemies, you might say, save me from my enemies. I don't even want to have no conflict with them. So as we go on just a little bit, and I'm going to be skipping some stuff, quite a bit of this end, but I'm going to bring out some key points in here. All right. And the 12th verse, it says, and God said to Balaam, thou shalt not go with them. Thou shalt not curse the people, for they are blessed. And Balaam rose up in the morning and said unto the princes of Balak, get you into your land, for the Lord refuses to give me leave to go with you. All right. All right. So now, he didn't tell them that the people are blessed. All right. And that's why he didn't go. He said, so now you already know that he want to curse somebody. He want the fame. He want to curse somebody. So that means though he blessed people before, he had to have an idea who the people are already, even though the name is not mentioned. And that's what his heart really is about, want to curse. Because he didn't say, not only God say no, but he stopped short of saying the people are blessed. And that's very important, to transmit. And then as we go further, and the princes of Moab rose up, and they went unto Balak and said, Balaam refused to come with us, and Balak sent yet again princes more and more honorable than they. And they came to Balaam and said to him, thus said Balak the son of Zippor, let nothing, I pray thee, hinder thee from coming unto me, for I will promote thee unto very great honor, and whatsoever thou sayest unto me, I will do. Come, therefore, I pray thee, curse me this people. And Balaam answered and said unto the servants of Balak, if Balak will give me his house full of silver and gold, I cannot go beyond the words of the Lord my God to do anything small or great. Now therefore, I pray you, tarry ye also here this night, that I may know what the Lord will speak unto me more. All right, before I get to the 20th verse, and the reason I'm going to spin this whole thing out, because it answers a question that often comes up when Balaam decided to go, why he's, is threatened, his life is threatened on the way, and so by listening to the verbiage here, you get an idea of the character, so this, and so this here, the verbiage is pretty clear in the beginning, but then when we get into when Balaam started to speak, then we have so many different areas and stuff like that, and with the scene that goes on this travel. So, but one of the things I like to focus on is that house full of silver and gold, but he called God his God. And I can't go beyond, but he tell you, stick around. Let me see God could change. Now, the difference is, and this is a very significant difference I like to point out, is that we, as Israelites, children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, our aim as an objective is submit to God's will. Now I say with Nishma, do and then hear. Heathens on other, other people, I would say, like especially people that's in soothsaying, sorcery, mystic arts, and all that kind of stuff, and other people, they want to bend God's will to their will. That's the difference between the Israelite, the descendants of Abraham, and descendants of people that don't follow the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's because they looking to make their God's will their will, while we submit to the will of the Creator, which is a big difference. So we're not trying to manipulate God's will. We're trying to submit to God's will. We're trying to conform to God's will, whereas they said, no, I don't think I like that. I need to cause him to change his mind, switch it up, And when we plead for mercy, we already attest that God is right in what he's doing. We just ask him to try to be lenient. So we're not trying to change, his will, because his will is that we live, but the thing is, and that we serve, but we're trying to ask him to give us another shot at trying to, serve him. That's what we do. So you notice from the beginning, the Midian, the elders of Midian, they no longer around. From the first set of princes, the elders of Midian didn't stay all night. They left. So you only had the Moabites sticking around. And now, you had the Midianites come in the second time. You had just Moabites coming back. All right, at this time. All right, so now as we get further into the story, it said, where was that, the 20th verse. And God came unto Balaam at night and said unto him, if the men are come to call thee, rise up, go with them. Well, we know God know they came for what the reason they came for. So, and said the men come up to call thee. God tell them to go. All right. But only the word which I speak unto thee, that shalt thou do. Now, before we go to 21, Moses, and when we talk about Moses, because now Balaam used divination, all kinds of stuff we can read about later on. I know I ain't gonna get into it in depth. That's why I'm trying to spend a little time on this on some of this review. Is that we know automatically that Balaam is just as powerful amongst in the world as Moses. He's just the opposite of Moses. Moses more of a servant of the Lord, and Balaam, he has communication with God as well. And Balaam is not an idol worshiper. He only worshiped one God. He called God his God, and he used the tetragrammaton. So he's not thinking about, I'm not sure, like Jethro was saying, now I know the Lord God is God of all lords. He's not saying that at all. He knows about one God. When we talk about Eob knew about the true and living God. Yeah, Melchizedek, Abraham respected him because he knew about the true and living God. So Balaam knew and only, recognized the one and only true and living God. And what was incumbent upon him is, we don't know, and we really, you got a lot of speculations, but he only dealt with the one and true and living God, and God communicated with him, directly. So when we read later on in the book, and then I'm saying that ahead of time because I'm going to be stepping up the pace a bit, is that at the end of Deuteronomy, it says, there never yet arisen up in Israel a prophet like unto Moses. You know what I mean? One who beheld God, knew a beheld God, knew a similitude. God spoke face to face, or mouth to mouth. Balaam was on the level of Moses in the sense that he was able to talk to the true and living God. You know, he was on a level that was higher than Aaron or any other prophets you read about in the scriptures. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel. Balaam was on a higher level than that. He just was on the dog path, as they say. And you notice God only dealt with him at night. Now let's look about some of the people God dealt with at night, and think about some of the characters, so to speak. The characters or their roots. All right. Now the first one we read about an encounter of a stranger that's not descendant of Abraham directly is Laban. God came to Laban in a dream and told him, watch what you say to Jacob, speaking good or bad. That's at night. Next, Abimelech. You're a dead man, but that's at night. Moses getting stuff in the daytime. So when you're meeting with people at night, undercover, even Saul went at night, undisguised, meet the richer indoor to pull up Samuel's spirit. So why God meet with this guy at night? It's almost like when you meet people at night, it's like, I don't want to be seen with you, really. That's usually what it is. I don't really want to be seen with you too much, but I'm working with you, but I really don't care to be with you much, because if the heathens had no access to the Creator, they can say, well, things ain't fair. We didn't have the opportunity, but they have a guy that knew about God, and we knew this guy had blessed people before. And he also cursed people before, but he preferred the curse of people. And why do you want to curse God's inheritance is a whole nother area in itself. But let's move on a little bit further. All right. So he got able to go, and then this way the story takes all kind of a spin. and it says in where was that? Boom, boom. Okay. So 21st verse, and Balaam rose in the morning and saddled his ass and went with the princes of Moab. And God's anger was kindled against because he went with the and the angel of the Lord placed himself in the way for an adversary against him. Now he was riding upon his ass, and his two servants were with him. Now, why do a guy saddle when he got servants? He got servants, Hey, get my donkey ready. Get my donkey ready. So that so I can make this trip. Why would you do it yourself? Because now God told me I could go, and He said I only say what I'm gonna say. So He didn't say I couldn't curse him again. He just said only gonna say the words I'm gonna say. So possibly I got a shot. So I'm gonna rush right quick. I'm not gonna ask. Is it going to be good or favorable? That's not even in the equation. In that sense. So he goes and makes a move. But who else did saddle their own donkey in the morning? Abraham, when he's getting ready to offer up Isaac, he got up early in the morning. We know Abraham had plenty of servants, and he did that to perform God's will. Even though, it'd be a serious stretch on it, but he was really ready to fulfill God's will, not necessarily his will, but he was ready to submit to God's will. Balaam, figuring, I'm ready to do this here, because God going to work with me, and so God going to submit to my will. Because if I'm traveling with them, that means I know what they want. God know what they want. So now what happened? And 23rd, and the angel saw, and the ass saw the angel of the Lord stand in the way with a sword drawn in the hand, and the ass turned aside out of the way and went to the field. And Balaam smote the ass to turn her into the way. Then the angel of the Lord stood in a hollow way between the vineyards, a fence being on this side and on the fence on that side. And the angel saw, and the ass saw the angel of the Lord, and she thrust herself unto the wall and crushed Balaam's foot against the wall. And he smote her again. And the angel of the Lord went further and stood in a narrow place where was no way to turn, either to the right hand or to the left. And the ass saw the angel of the Lord, and she laid down under Balaam, and Balaam's anger was kindled, and he smote the ass with a staff. And the Lord opened the mouth of the ass, and she said unto Balaam, what have I done unto thee, that thou hast smitten me these 3 times? And Balaam said unto the ass, because thou hast mocked me, I would there were a sword in my hand, for now I had killed thee. And the ass said unto Balaam, am not I thine ass, upon which thou hast ridden all thy life long unto this day? So that means that we find out some things here. This ass is older than Balaam. Now they usually don't live that long. Some of the, they don't live that long. So how did this particular creature live that long? Chris said, you've ridden all your life long unto this day. That means when you was a toddler, your parents used to set them on me. And I didn't buck you and threw you this way and that way. You ride when you was a baby. And now you're growing up, and this is how you treat me. So this is something, interesting when you look at it. And so many different, view and ways you could, approach this particular storyline here. But you notice the servants, they don't mention the servants seeing anything in this whole ordeal. So where's the servants at? And why, not only Balaam don't see anything, you don't see where the servants are at, and they're supposed to be with him. At least 2 of them, they're supposed to be with him. So what's going on with that? And I'm sure they got an entourage for the journey. It's not a short trip. It's going to take quite a bit of a distance to go from that part of the world to where he need to go at. So what happened to everybody else? That's something to think about as you go forward. That's why the story's got so many different dimensions to go through. And then when you look at the area here, is that he worried about, he got the power of the spoken word, as they say. And since he got the power of the spoken word, he gonna want to curse a people and annihilate a people. And yet a staff, it's not good enough for this donkey. He need a sword. The tool he need is right before him, but it's against him. And that's something. The tool he actually need is right before him, but it's against him, in the hands of an adversary, in that sense. And he don't realize now the Lord opened up the mouth of, the ass. Now, there's only 2 times you read in the scripture where animals spoke. In the garden, and also in this case right here. And people are always fascinated by animals speaking and communicating with animals. That's why you have all these different shows about animals and Dr. Seuss and all that stuff. But what is interesting is that God say, normally the prayer I normally say, "Oh Lord, on my lips and my mouth should declare that praise," or show forth that words or that praise. The thing is that usually when God, use you as a tool and open up, that's no longer you. You became the vessel, and He using you as the vessel. But here it is that the mouth, He caused the mouth to open up, and He's speaking to him what He's saying, and he's making more sense. And the guy caught up in his feelings that he can't realize. All my life, you never said anything to me. All my life, you never said a word to me. And, he never thought about that. That was never even on the agenda. He just said, "Look here, you're trying to show out on me. You're trying to show out on me. You're trying to disobey me." But yeah, and I'm disobeying, But that's another story. But I don't want to focus on that because I want to get into some of the things right quick. So we know automatically after that, the angel had already told him, well, I'm gonna read that part and then just skim over the rest. And then the Lord opened up the 31st verse, and then the Lord opened up the eyes of Balaam. He saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way with a sword drawn in his hand, and he bowed his head and fell on his face. And the angel of the Lord said unto him, "Wherefore hast thou smitten thy ass these 3 times? Behold, I am come forth for an adversary, because thy way is contrary unto me." This angel talked to him. Well, where I'm contrary unto you as an angel, in that sense. And he said, and the ass saw me and turned aside before me these 3 times. Unless she had turned aside from me, surely now I have even slain thee and saved her alive. And Balaam said unto the angel of the Lord, I have sinned, for I knew not that thou stoodest in the way against me. Now therefore, if it displease thee, I will get me back. And the angel of the Lord said unto Balaam, Go with the men, but only the words that I shall speak unto thee, that thou shalt speak. All right. Now, just the angel now taking over because of a certain type of disobedience. Now, you get some certain subtle parallels, but I don't want to bring that out because at the Akedah, we read when, and then just something to think about, but I don't want you to focus on. Just think about it, in a little bit. Is that when Abraham was ready to slay Isaac, an angel called out from heaven. Now that means that he couldn't get there in time. The distance was too far, but yet his voice traveled faster than he could have traveled. And you never read where God spoke with Abraham again. So now he tried to emulate some things of Abraham in a sense, but now you read with the angel as like he's taking charge, though he's commissioned by God, but like God ain't gonna speak to him directly anymore from this point on. I'm gonna let the angel speak to you, in that sense. You don't deserve me to speak to you any further, So this is some things you can look at, and discuss it with your teachers as you go forward, over the story, because this story has so many different dimensions, and it's really, no one way to interpret this particular story. All right, but then then in the next portion we know. So Balaam went with the prince of Balak, and when Balak heard that Balaam was come, he went out to meet him unto Moab, which is on the border of Aram, which is on the utmost part of the border. And Balak said unto Balaam, Did I not earnestly send unto thee to call thee? Wherefore camest thou not unto me? I am not able, am I not able indeed to promote thee to honor? And Balaam said unto Balak, Lo, I am come unto thee have I now any power at all to speak? All right, so anything, the word that God put in my mouth, that shall I speak. And Balaam went with Balak, and they came into Kiryat Kasut. And Balak sacrificed oxen and sheep and sent to Balaam and to the princes that were with him. And it came to pass in the morning that Balak took Balaam and brought him up unto Baal, and he saw from thence the uttermost part of the people. All right, now, one of the things, I'm going to get into a little bit of the parable very quick in a short time. One of the things we find out that they didn't get along after that. He had to send for him twice, an extensive journey. So he left. And you find from here, after he sent for him, I need to cool off. I don't want to start nothing. Because this guy got some, because Balak think Balaam still got a whole lot of juice. He don't know about the ordeal that he actually went through. You know, he just saying, look, you took too long, man, for a guy like me, you know, to come, you know what I mean? And I sent for you royalty, sent for you twice. And that's not down the block. It's a journey. And now you come here, well, you wait a while. Let me go and do what I'm doing. Then I send for you later on in the morning to start something. So that shows the conflict that went down. So much dynamics in the story. But you know, he builds up. He builds up. You know, altars. You know, he gonna offer up in a total of 42 sacrifices. You know, 7 bullocks and 7 rams. Very expensive. You know, 3 times. You know, so. But one of the things I'm gonna skip on down into the 23rd chapter, and I'm gonna pick it up from the 7th verse. And you know, after he made the first burnt offering, and he took up his parable and said, "From around Balak, bring it to me, the king of Moab, from the mountains of the east. Come, curse me, Jacob, and come extricate Israel. How shall I curse whom God have not cursed? And how shall I extricate whom the Lord have not extricated? From the top of the rocks I see him. From the hills I behold him. Lo, it is a people that should dwell alone, and shall not be reckoned among the nations. Who have counted the dust of Jacob, or numbered the stock of Israel? Let me die the death of the righteous, and let my end be like his." Now, first of all, you know, he gave a confession what Balak wanted, and Balak sent for him. It's almost like saying, it wasn't my idea, it's Balak's idea, but I kind of agree with this here. Now I look at, you know, after I look at it, you know, I mean, I now I see who the people we're talking about clearly, and I know about both names, Jacob and Israel. You know, I'm knowing about both names, and I'm looking at them. I'm just looking and watching them, you know, and said they're not like any other people on the planet, you know, and I can't even count them, you know. And he said, "Let me die the death of the righteous." Only way you're gonna die the death of a righteous is if you live a righteous life, you know. And let my end be like his, like Israel. Israel, as long as the sun, the moon, stars, and heaven exist, so is God's covenant with the nation of Israel. So Balak, of course, you know, get upset. And Balak said unto Balaam, "Well, thou hast done unto me. I took thee to curse my enemies, and behold, thou hast blessed them altogether." Well, you know, I didn't read where it's a clear-cut blessing here at all. People that's dwelling alone, still unto themselves. You know, I mean, all he said was, you know, they are having, you know, a nice departure from this world. But Balaam, since it's in a parable, and which is different, that we don't have parables when our prophets come to us. They have visions and they explain the visions, you know. But other than that, we don't. Nowhere the word, you know, Mishloach is used here in any of our prophecy in the Tanakh. You know, and we're talking parables, you know, I mean, then That's not good. The closest, parable we read about is in a little saying in Isaiah when it says, line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. Then you might learn the coming and going of the Lord. That's the closest thing I can think of offhand. But other than that, none of the prophets deal with parables, so he let you know that he's different, in this sense, compared to the prophecies that's coming to Israel, because Israel, our prophecy is to try to make us reform and become better. His parable is saying, I got to explain this to you where you will understand it. So I got to talk to you in the language you will understand. And what you call Balak understood that. And then he went to another part, and goes on to say, and another orphan, 18th verse, and he took up this parable and said, arise, Balak, and hear, give ear unto me, thou son of Zippor. God is not a man that he should lie, neither is the son of man that he should repent. So I said, I know you got these strange ideas of God, but this ain't the God that I know about. He's not like that, And when he has said, will he not do? Or when he has spoken, will he not make good? Behold, I am bidden to bless, and when he hath blessed, I cannot call it back. He said, I'm called, in other words, I'm a vehicle now. I'm not the man you think I am. Before, you looked at me like I had the power. I don't have the power. You know what I mean? But you thought I had the power, and I made everybody else think I had the power, because my reputation was all that blessed is blessed, everybody curse is cursed. I never gave God any credit for this. Now I'm letting you know I don't have power like that. So I'm letting you know, the genie's out the lamp. You know what I mean? I really ain't got no juice like that. I'm just a vehicle. When the Kohen gives a blessing, the priestly blessing, he actually blessing, as a vehicle. And at the end it says, and I will bless him. That's the creator. But he uses them as a vehicle. And it goes on to say, and none have beheld iniquity in Jacob, neither have one seen perverseness in Israel. Well, we know we did a lot of stuff in this 40th year, and this isn't the 40th year. Where Moses at? Why he's not encountering this guy? God protect us in spite of we know it or not. This had to be revealed to Moses. Aaron's gone, Miriam gone. Moses is in his last parts of his years of his life, and he's gonna go in that same year, and yet he's not confronting this guy at all. So God protecting us, inspired us, and other people can see the flaws in us slowly looking. And God wouldn't allow our shame to be exposed to other people at this time. So that means that we decide to do right sometime. And Lord God said, and the Lord is his God is with them, and the shout for the king is among them. And God, who brought them forth out of Egypt, is for them like the lofty horns of a wild ox. Now, this line, I read that because I want you to realize that he made it when Balak sent the messengers and stuff like that. The messengers made it seem like the children of Israel escaped from Egypt. They fled or fought their way out, But it telling you right here, but Balaam saying, look, them people didn't fight their way out. Them people didn't flee from Egypt. Them people was brought out by a God, not on their own merit, not on their own strength, And so that God is what made them so successful in the other battles and everything they encountered, when they was able to stay out there. Everybody knew they was out there for, in the wilderness for all them years. But they say, well, how they was able to survive all those years, So Balaam is telling Balak, hey, that's how they made it. because God did this for him. And he goes on to say, for if there is no enchantment with Jacob, neither is there any divination in Israel. Now it is said of Jacob and of Israel, what have God wrought? Behold, a people that rises up as a lioness, and as a lion does, he lifts himself up, and he lie down until he eat the prey. He shall not lie down until he eat the prey, of the prey, and drink the blood of the slain. All right, Balak is really upset after all this here. He take him to another spot, but he said, and he wanted to see if God, now he realized that, God's the one that's they got the juice, and not Balaam. He said, it will please God that them may curse me them from thence. And Balak took Balaam from the top of Peor that looketh down upon the desert. And behold, and Balaam said unto Balak, build me here 7 altars. All right. You notice one of the things talking about building the 7 altars, and for him, not for God, for himself. But he goes off, most of the times. All right. But then in this last 24th chapter, it says, and when Balaam saw that it pleased the Lord to bless Israel, he went not as at other times to meet with enchantment, but he set his face towards the wilderness. And Balaam lifted up his eyes, and he saw Israel dwelling tribe by tribe, and the Spirit of God came upon him. And he took up his parable and said, now, it said, and the Spirit of God came upon him. He finally gave in because he tried and he couldn't do it. And, and that's when they say, the Spirit of God came upon him. So this is a unique individual. Like I said, he's the opposite of Moses, more powerful than Isaiah, for instance, relationship, contact with God and relationship with, being able to have access to the Creator. Then Jeremiah and Ezekiel and all them guys. But he wasn't, the great man, but God could cause you, to change, and do his will. And said, the saying of Balaam, the son of Beor, and the saying of the man whose eyes open, and the saying of him who hears the words of God, who sees the vision of the Almighty, falleth down yet with eyes open. Now, the word he used later on, I don't have time to get into it. I'm looking at my time now, but he used a term which means like a closed eye, or an eye that's lost. Some people might have a marble in their eye because they lost their eyesight. Well, that term, I think the word is setima, whatever, you can look it up in the Hebrew there. That means an eye that's defective. So either one eye to stay closed or one eye was hollowed out. He lost the eye over a period of time, almost like a, one eye pirate, so to speak. But this is something, that's unique. But this time he didn't go, he didn't go do divinations, and let you know that he was doing whatever he did. It worked for him. We was told not to do that. Not that the stuff may not work. We was told not to participate in that. So when people talk about, divination, witchcraft, and all that kind of stuff, it's not that certain things may not work. We're not supposed to work in those certain things. We didn't have to go that route. But this time, showing his power, this and the Spirit of God came upon him. All right. And he took him in the 5th verse. How good are thy tents, O Jacob, and thy dwellings, O Israel. All right. This is a prayer they say entering the synagogue all the time. Matubo Alecha Yaakov Mishmatecha Yisrael. All right. That's coming from Balaam. All right. And then it goes, and then after he finished speaking on all these different things, and he started to give a future thing about the first time you read about and hear anything about a messianic future. It's coming from Balaam himself. All right. So just to highlight the certain things here, I'm not going to be able to finish most of the stuff. I just want to highlight some of the stuff in there. Is that, he blessed Israel when more greater blessings than Moses blessed him. And yet, he wanted to curse him. And that's what he really wanted to do, but Balak, was angry with him, and smote his hand together and stuff like that. But he wouldn't touch Balaam. You say, well, you're a king. You're powerful. There's a man, he had a reputation. And then you realize that his reputation is only based on some outside source and not him being the source. And yet, you lay hands on him when you spend all that money, all the travel, the expenses, the 42 sacrifices and time, and then get what you want. And you didn't put hands on this man as a king, and your name is the destroyer, simply because, one, he might be able to work something. He still had a little fear for him somewhat, but then this is my view, is that when you bless Israel, you'll be blessed. So his blessing was to leave there alive. That was his blessing, to leave there alive. Because we got him later when we go into the next century. We got him later. But he was blessed to say that, and in front of a king with all his top people there, and with the expense of the king, and walk out like Moses was able to walk out from Pharaoh. You know what I mean? So he was able to walk out just like that in that situation. But he wasn't done with Israel. He said, look, I'm gonna tell you how to mess them up. So, and he took up a bunch of prophecies against Amalek, against Kenites and Ashur, and one of the things I had to say, then in the 25th verse of 24th chapter, and Balaam rose up and went and returned to his place, and Balak also went his way. All right, returned to his place, but but we find that he might have made a stop somewhere along the line, but return to his place. And what do we mean by return to his place? Because we find him later on in another location, which is a good little distance from his place, where it should be. So when we find out that out of the 6 remembrance, there's certain things we're supposed to remember in the scripture. Some people, Sephardim add 10 more. And when remember, the day he left out of Egypt, remember, what God did to Miriam, etc. And Malachi is remember, about, what Balaam, remember Balaam. We got to remember this and stuff, how he was hired. And also that's one of the reasons why the Ammonites and the Moabites is not, part of the congregation of the Lord, which is, in the sense that, they met us not with bread and water. We didn't need their bread and we didn't need their water, but they hired Balaam against them. He said, well, the Ammonites, was they a part of that? The book let they was also included in that, in the book. So I hope you got some of what I said. It's a lot more of the other parts, I'll highlight and touch on maybe next week, God willing. So any mistakes?
Hallelujah. Torah about Nasik. Thank you for your insight, and thank you for the wisdom that you brought forth. And we pray and hope that everyone out there have a good night's sleep. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Don't forget to continue to support the D.C.B. channel. And all, not just this program, but all the programs across, Shabbat day, services, whatever it is that we have going on. Don't forget to support and to share all the videos. Shalom, shalom, everyone. Have a good night sleep, and may the Most High God bless you all. Hallelujah.
Let's get knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, His laws and commandments. The hot CHOKMAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah, knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, His laws and commandments. The hot CHOKMAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah.